Please note, this video is about the extension of consciousness. Every human soul passes through the stages of development shown. It is wrong to associate them with categories like good-bad, stupid-smart, etc. All stages are of equal importance. People behave according to their respective consciousness. People with a different consciousness, however, show serious differences that are presented. The photos and video clips shown are non-binding symbol images. The author does not claim to have correctly assessed the people shown. The cycle of the mature soul is the most difficult and the longest at the same time. It begins with an uncertainty and disillusionment of the incarnated personality. The mature soul sees problems everywhere, where there were no difficulties for the young soul. The freshly baked mature soul must learn to deal with its very own fears. She must learn to take responsibility. The attention turns inward to explore the inner soul dimensions. Karmic connections that have taken place in the cycle of the young soul must be resolved in a responsible way. The ability to love increases and the occupation with individual behaviors becomes significant. The personality becomes independent of social norms and develops an unmistakable individuality. The mature soul begins to feel the close connection with the soul worlds. She tends to experience this connection with psychedelic means directly. She searches for spiritual fulfillment in esoteric schools and gets to know different forms of meditation. She can take life very seriously and stands in her own way. The mature soul experiences the vulnerability and transience of the human body. Diseases are by no means a technical failure of the body, as one assumes in medicine, but intentional experiences of the soul. As a rule, they are an expression of anxiety states that are not directly perceived by the mind. Therefore, they must be manifest on the physical level. They are a teaching tool of the soul, with which it trains the human mind and from whose experiences it profits and grows. For this reason, a chronic disease cannot be completely cured until the psychic concept has changed and a lesson anchored in the soul plan has been learned. The mature soul is confronted with her illness, consciously works with her fears, and finally learns to deal with them. Here free will is left a wide scope. One can consciously decide for health or illness. The decisive factor is the size of the fear. Therefore, many mature souls are currently experiencing an accumulation of diseases that suddenly strike them and immobilize them. Thus, the mature souls want to complete their physical task quickly before the actual evolutionary leap and gain valuable experience before they enter the cycle of the old souls with different requirements. These diseases have a double function. On the one hand, they are part of the mental plan. On the other hand, they give those concerned the opportunity to move away from professional and domestic everyday life in order to reflect on themselves and the world. They are given opportunity to overcome their fear mentally and to strengthen their mind. A part of our diseases are deliberate, irreversible decisions of the soul. They cannot be avoided by the mind through any strategy. In this case, one speaks of karmic diseases. However, most diseases are caused by a disharmony between mind and body. Such diseases can be cured if the psychological causes of anxiety are eliminated. The rest of the diseases are caused by neglect or damage to the body through all sorts of toxins. Mature souls make up about 20% of the world's population. They have adjusted to these conditions. They quietly quarrel with their fears, which they experience on behalf of the young souls. They blame themselves why they adapt so badly to the social conditions of the young souls and do not advance socially. Few mature souls in the present incarnation chosen an influential or successful life course, knowing full well that sooner or later the system will collapse and it will be beneficial not to be near the debris heap. Unfortunately, the earthly personalities know very little about these far-sighted plans of their souls and find life very difficult. In the world of young souls, they provide accents, think more far-sightedly, see larger contexts, be interested in fairness and balance. The energy of teaching and learning prevails. Library and bookstores are visited. The internet is searched to learn as much as possible about cultures and attitudes of life. Self-help literature is also widely used, and education of all kinds is a high priority. This constant search often leads to confusion and the feeling of being overtaxed. After all, the mature personality makes the right intuitive decisions. Religion is no longer dogma but social togetherness. In this way, alternative teachings can also be tried out and accepted. The meaning of life is the most important question. Mature souls understand predominantly in relationships. They are interested in the content and feelings in a relationship because they recognize themselves through it. Relationships are intense and often dramatic when perception is distorted by fear. Drama is based on illusions and causes suffering. These souls are very concerned with their own suffering and that of others in order to learn from it. The knowledge of being able to learn through joy in the same way comes at the earliest at the end of this cycle, but mostly during old age of the soul. Mature souls say, "Do whatever you want, but please don't do it near me." Opinions can be of equal value as long as they are not negatively affecting oneself. The partner may live out his individuality without losing the positive attention. Many relationships, many experiences of letting go and disappointments, but also moments of happiness and deep insights. But what the mature souls seek on the outside, they finally find on the inside, within themselves. Mature souls usually have a good sense of humor. They like the little funny jokes that are never meant hostile. Constructive communication is the be-all and end-all for mature souls. Many mature souls yield in doubt and submit instead of fighting for their freedom. The mature soul often chooses helping professions for children, the sick, the old, the disadvantaged, etc. The mature soul willingly takes responsibility for others as well as for herself. When something happens that was not planned, the mature soul blames itself excessively. The mature soul no longer identifies with wealth and power, but enjoys deserved prosperity and prestige. The Dalai Lama says, intense emotions distort perception. Within the souls incarnated on earth, there are clear differences in individual perception depending on the age of the soul. The smaller the individual and collective fear, the less distorted the perception. Therefore, the perception of an old soul that is diminished in fear is more objective than that of a young soul. In an old soul, the densest layers of anxiety in the astral body, which prevent the exchange of information with the soul, are largely degraded. In the consciousness of such a personality, the objective perception of the soul prevails. In comparison to the baby, child and young soul, the consciousness of an incarnated old soul has been significantly expanded. Old souls can recognize connections that a young soul does not ever see. The young soul ignores these connections with an unconscious fear. The old soul cannot currently explain in a comprehensible way how it arrives at important insights that are denied to the majority of immature souls. These findings are therefore not socially acceptable. They are little honored nor followed, although they provide important clues about the present and future development of mankind. In former times, old souls were worshipped as spiritual leaders, and their statements were respected. Today's outward-facing, materialistic society consists mainly of young souls. With their narrow psychomental needs, they do not tolerate differences, let alone the superiority of others. The objective, transcendent perception of an old soul therefore proves to be a social disadvantage. Young souls hate nothing more than otherness, especially when they cannot comprehend it. This fear-conditioned impulse of total rejection is predominant in today's world. It leads to many cruel acts, from mobbing to war and genocide. The old soul, on the other hand, increasingly develops an almost childlike innocence and playfulness because it has become tired of the protracted search of the mature souls. She lives on the fringes of society, or she takes over superordinate tasks of the soul family and chooses a difficult career path. The old soul needs a lot of time for introspection and works with its fear-diminished mind mainly in the private sector. She is often cared for by young or mature souls and no longer develops social ambition. She only has a few earthly tasks left to complete, which she also masters playfully. She loves to observe nature or to work as craftsman. She can draw from the immeasurable treasure of her experiences. She is therefore very versatile. Because an old soul seldom has to exert itself, it seems to most serious young and precocious souls to be rather superficial. Since for them the inner soul dimension is not yet a fixed quantity, the young souls cannot guess the depth of the lightness of being of the old souls. They are in the middle of their incarnation cycle and consider the upcoming tasks to be very difficult and serious. Young souls in particular have no understanding for the cosmic humor of the old soul, with which it easily masters its life. The old soul meets very few friends from other incarnations on earth. Most have completed their incarnation cycle. The young souls are of little use to an old soul. She lives in a social solitude, soaked in the insatiable longing for union with her soul family. Her main task is to manage the tension between the demands of physicality and the dissolution of personality. Many outsiders, relegates, who are considered by the young souls with collective contempt, are old souls. They are citizens of the world, feel at home everywhere, but prefer the silence of the rural countryside. As with all soul ages, there are also 7 different stages of development for the old souls. The examples shown are differently developed. All ages of souls are equally significant. There are no abbreviations. Within the framework of the present process of transformation, the mature souls will enter into the cycle of the old souls. For the first time in the recent history of the earth, about 1/4 of the incarnated souls on earth will be old. They will exert an intense spiritual influence that they have not been able to achieve so far. Esoteric schools are an offer of mature souls who have turned away from organized religions. Science is an offer to the young and mature souls to train their minds. However, there is nothing new to discover, because the material nature is created by us as souls. Therefore, there is only one intellectual achievement that we must perform in order to grow spiritually. It is about remembering who we really are, immortal souls becoming gods. What's the last thing the old soul has to overcome? It's the fear of the transience of the body. The fear of death is programmed into the cells. The fear of death is the greatest fear of all. It is also the biggest barrier to the ability to love. An old soul is recognized by its self-awareness, by its depth and its inner peace. Expansion of consciousness through comprehension. Decrease in anxiety, increase in lovability and compassion. First steps in a protected environment, such as an extended family. Animistic, instinctive. Magical, pantheistic. Child soul, further steps in stable societies. I do what I am told, that is best for me. Conquest of the world, fear remains unconscious. Gods as myths, exercise of power. I, me, my, minitis, materialistic fun society. Dealing with fear, pain, suffering. Education, science. Idealistic, humanistic, sensitive. Compassion, encouragement, joy. Old souls, fear goes into the background. Love, wisdom comes to the fore. A sense of beauty and harmony. Wide, integrating, holistic view of the world.